They fined me $1,200 for blocking access to a shared roadway that cuts through my property, though I have the recorded deed showing it's private. On the 15th day after their notice, I filed the document they never thought existed. It changed everything. Welcome to my channel. I'm Ryan, a civil engineer from Denton, Texas, and for the past year I've been documenting what happens when ordinary homeowners face extraordinary abuse of power. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It helps honest stories stay visible. And tell me, where are you watching from tonight? The morning it began, the envelope sat crooked in my mailbox, sun-faded, printed with the HOA's red logo like a warning flare. Inside, a violation letter taped over a color photo of my own gravel driveway, dated June 4, 2024. Unauthorized barrier obstructing community right-of-way. The barrier was a temporary farm gate I'd put up after coyotes started crossing through. I'd installed it with proper reflective tape, lockable hinges, and clear signage. Still, they called it illegal. My wife, Lila, found me at the kitchen counter tracing the embossed letterhead with my thumb. "You're not going to let this ruin breakfast again," she said. She was right. We'd lost enough sleep since my father's passing last fall. The ranch was his last wish to preserve, his name still engraved on the boundary post. Losing that strip of land felt like losing him again. I drove down to the HOA office, a beige prefab sitting behind the pond. Inside, the air smelled of toner and burnt coffee. The president, a man named Kurt Mallory, greeted me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Whitmore," he said, tapping a stack of bylaws, "this gate violates Section 4.3 of our easement access agreement. Remove it within 10 days or face daily fines." I asked him to show me the recorded plat that proved the HOA's right of way. Eh? He smirked. "You can check with the county clerk," he said, "but I'll save you the trip. It's common property." Driving home, the steering wheel felt heavier with every curve of that road. The fence posts blurred past like tally marks counting down something inevitable. I stopped near the pond, stepped out, and pressed my boot into the dust. That stretch of asphalt had been poured by my father's construction company in 1996, before the HOA even existed. The records had to show that. That night, I spread a stack of old documents across the dining table. Plats, invoices, survey maps with coffee stains. Each line told a story of ownership, of measurements carved into the soil long before the HOA formed in 2002. Lila leaned over, tying her hair back. "You're doing this again?" she said softly. "Chasing ghosts." "Not ghosts," I said. "Paper." The next morning, I drove to the county recorder's office on Elm Street. The clerk, Sharon, wore a turquoise cardigan and a look of practiced patience. I handed her the parcel number and she rolled her chair to the microfilm machine. The flickering light bounced off her glasses. "Here," she said after a minute. "Deed recorded June 18, 1996. Easement retained by original owner for ingress and egress only. That's you." "So, not community property?" She shook her head. "Not unless you signed it away, which you didn't. Looks like the HOA's road cuts through your private parcel." I took a photocopy, sealed it in a plastic sleeve, and felt the first tremor of calm in weeks. But the storm hadn't even started. Back home, an orange citation was taped to my mailbox. Second notice. Daily fine, $150, starting July 1st. They hadn't even waited for my appeal. My neighbor Ed, an old Vietnam vet who mowed his lawn in combat boots, stood by his truck watching me tear it down. "They're coming after me next," he said. "Said my flagpole's too tall. You ever feel like we're paying them to harass us?" I nodded. "I'm starting to." That night, while the cicadas hummed and Lila folded laundry, I printed every photo, map, and deed. I timestamped the files, labeled each one. Parcel 14, ingress rights. When I was done, I sealed them in a binder, red cover, black spine. The label read, "Proof of Ownership." Before sleeping, I stood on the porch watching the reflection of the moon ripple in the pond. My father's voice echoed faintly, his old lecture about stewardship, not pride. "Land remembers who cares for it," he used to say. I hoped he was right. The following week, a security truck rolled up while I was checking the mailbox. The driver, a younger guy with mirrored shades, leaned out. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm here to photograph the obstruction for record keeping." "You mean my gate?" "HOA directive, sir." I let him. The shutter clicks sounded like nails tapping on a coffin lid. By that evening, I'd had enough. I drafted a certified letter citing Texas Property Code 50209-007, notice and hearing requirements for alleged violations. They'd skipped the hearing entirely. I mailed it the next morning. When Lila asked if I was sure about fighting them, I said, "If I don't, it'll never stop. They'll pick the next thing, our mailbox, our siding, maybe the color of our kid's bike." She smiled sadly. "We don't even have kids yet." "That's exactly why," I said. 3 days later, I received an email from Mallory. "Our legal counsel reviewed your claim. The HOA maintains jurisdiction over all common roads. Failure to comply by July 10th will result in enforcement action." Enforcement action. The phrase tasted metallic, like blood. I called Ed. "You still got that friend at the Gazette?" He laughed his gravelly laugh. "Yeah, she owes me for fixing her fence last spring." "Why?" "Because if they want to make this public, so will I." I didn't know it yet, but that decision, to document everything, was the first brick in the wall that would eventually trap them. The article came out on July 9th, 2 days before the deadline. Headline: HOA claims ownership of private ranch road, property owner disputes. It ran just 3 columns wide in the Denton Gazette, but the effect was immediate. By noon, my inbox filled with subject lines like HOA abuse and saw your gate story. Most were strangers. A few were neighbors afraid to speak publicly. That same afternoon, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. "This is Officer Chen with Denton County Sheriff's Office. We received a call from the Willow Ridge HOA regarding a roadway obstruction. Please return my call." I did, calmly. "Officer, the road in question crosses my deeded parcel. I have the records." He sounded tired but fair. "Then send me a copy. For now, don't touch the gate until we review it. They're claiming it's county maintained." "Copy that, officer." After hanging up, I sat at my desk and stared at the map pinned to the wall. Red push pins for every letter they'd sent me. Yellow pins for every photo I'd taken in response. The pattern looked like a chessboard, each move pushing closer to checkmate. That night, Ed knocked on my door carrying a thermos that smelled like motor oil and coffee. "You should meet someone," he said. "Guy named Tom Alvarado, retired city engineer, knows easements better than anyone." Tom showed up the next morning with a folder thick as a phone book. His white shirt sleeves were rolled up, cuffs stained with blue ink. "I heard your HOA thinks they own a right-of-way they never recorded," he said, sliding into a chair. "Mind if I take a look?" I spread the plats, deeds, and the HOA's glossy newsletter across the table. He studied them silently for several minutes, then chuckled. "Classic misfile," he said. "The road's never been dedicated to the county. The HOA copied language from the original developer's draft but never finalized the conveyance. So legally they can't use it? Not without your permission, and definitely not fine you for controlling it." Knowledge nugget number 1. In Texas, for a road to become community or county property, it must be formally dedicated and accepted by the governing body. A draft plat isn't enough. It needs an official filing and acceptance resolution. Tom looked up. "I'd keep quiet for now. Let them double down. It'll strengthen your case. But you should file a notice of private easement. Costs $50. Buys you leverage." I did exactly that. July 12th, 9:04 a.m., recorded at the county clerk's office. The clerk stamped it with that satisfying thunk. The next HOA meeting was July 14th, held in the clubhouse. I sat in the back, baseball cap pulled low. Mallory stood at the podium. "We're escalating enforcement," he announced. "Non-compliant members threaten community harmony. We will protect our shared assets." Someone raised a hand. "Isn't that road technically part of his land?" Mallory's smile tightened. "Misinformation spreads fast. Trust your board. We've consulted counsel." The room murmured. I stayed silent, watching, noting every word. When the meeting adjourned, Mallory walked past me without a glance. His perfume smelled like pine cleaner and nerves. Outside, Tom was waiting near his pickup. "You did good," he said. "They just lied publicly. That's on record." I exhaled. "Now what?" "Now we dig." Over the next week, Tom and I pored over county GIS maps, HOA meeting minutes, and bank disclosures. Turns out the HOA's insurance policy listed the road as Common Parcel C, though the official parcel map had no such designation. A clerical mirage. Lila kept a whiteboard on our fridge with dates, fines, phone calls, responses. "You're turning this into a full-time job," she said one night. "Someone has to." She smiled faintly. "You know, there are easier ways to meet your neighbors." The next morning, I found 3 more letters in my mailbox, each thicker than the last. One was a cease and desist order, the second a community compliance warning, and the third a threat of lien placement for obstruction maintenance. They were escalating faster than logic allowed. Around noon, I received another call from Officer Chen. "We did a site visit. The road's not county maintained. Their claim doesn't hold water. Just keep it civil, Mr. Whitmore." "Appreciated, officer." For the first time, the playing field tilted slightly in my favor, but I knew HOAs rarely surrender quietly. That night, under the yellow porch light, I drafted a timeline document labeled HOA Escalation Log. Every notice, date, and fine total. It hit $1,750 before the month ended. I photographed everything with timestamps and geotags. The neighbors started noticing. Ed waved me over while fixing his fence. "You're becoming a local legend," he said. "You know what folks are asking? How far should an HOA even go? Lawn, decor, driveway, where's the damn line?" It was a fair question. How far should they go? Should a board of volunteers have power to dictate the shape of someone's fence post or the gate to a private driveway? Tell me in the comments, where should that line be drawn? Meanwhile, Mallory doubled down. The HOA installed a surveillance camera on a nearby utility pole, angled conveniently toward my property. When I asked who authorized it, the property manager, a woman named Trish, replied via email, "For community safety." I replied, "Point it at my driveway. Remove within 24 hours or I'll file an invasion of privacy complaint." They didn't remove it. Instead, they sent another citation. Tampering with HOA-installed equipment is a $500 violation. That night, Lila found me staring at the footage on my own security monitor. Me, captured from their camera, captured again from mine. "This isn't about the gate anymore, is it?" she asked. "No," I said quietly. "It's about who controls the truth." The next week blurred into a grind of paperwork, coffee, and grit. Every morning I'd rise before sunrise, check the gate, then scroll through HOA updates like reading dispatches from a Cold War fought with PDFs. Tom and I spent afternoons in his garage surrounded by blueprints, the smell of oil and printer ink mixing like old battleships. We found the keystone on a Tuesday. Buried in the developer's 1996 construction contract, scanned in low resolution, there was a clause labeled Temporary Access Road. Expires upon transfer of Parcel 14 ownership. It was never renewed after my father's death. Meaning? The HOA's legal authority over that strip had evaporated decades ago. I stared at the sentence until the words burned behind my eyes. "They built their empire on a ghost easement," I said. Tom grinned. "Exactly. Now let them keep talking. The higher they climb, the harder they fall." By July 24th, I'd compiled a 63-page binder, every deed, map, photograph, and recorded letter. At the back, a bright orange tab labeled Evidence of Lapsed Easement. I kept it locked in my gun safe beside a Warren family photo, my dad leaning on the same fence post that now marked the center of the war. That Friday, the HOA posted a notice on the community board. Emergency Special Assessment Meeting, August 2nd, 7:00 p.m. Hidden in the small print, Legal counsel recommends roadway acquisition and security fee of $425 per household. They were trying to buy the road from me, using everyone else's money. I drove straight to Ed's house. He was sanding an old mailbox, paint flecks on his arms. I handed him the notice. $425 each, he read, whistling. That's robbery. They're calling it road safety improvements. I call it extortion. He laughed, but his eyes stayed serious. So what's your move? Let them vote. Then I'll show them what they're really paying. 4. Knowledge nugget number 2. An HOA can't levy a special assessment for acquiring or improving property not legally under its control without a 2/3 membership approval and a recorded conveyance agreement. I printed that statute on a sheet, highlighted in yellow, and taped it to the inside of my binder. The following week crawled by. Every day felt like the pause before thunder. I started noticing cars slowing near our gate, board members snapping photos through tinted windows. The security camera stayed pointed at our porch light like an unblinking eye. Lila's patience cracked one night. "They're making us prisoners in our own house," she said, tears sharp with exhaustion. "Can't we just take the gate down?" "And let them win?" I asked. "I don't care about winning, Ryan. I care about peace." I didn't answer, because deep down I feared she was right. Peace had become a memory. The night before the meeting, I drove the perimeter road one last time. Gravel crackled under the tires and the pond reflected the half-moon like a shard of silver glass. I stopped near the boundary marker, our family name carved into stone, and ran my fingers across the weathered engraving. "Still yours, Dad," I whispered. When August 2nd came, the clubhouse overflowed. Folding chairs, murmuring neighbors, the scent of cheap cologne and iced lemonade. Kurt Mallory stood at the podium in his navy blazer, tie perfectly centered. "This assessment ensures our community's safety and cohesion," he declared. "Neglecting this road invites liability for us all." I raised my hand. Question: did the HOA ever record ownership of the road? He paused. "The road is maintained for public use. That's not the question." Murmurs rippled. "Mr. Whitmore," Mallory snapped, "you're out of order." "I'm the property owner," I said, stepping forward. "You're proposing to charge residents for something the HOA doesn't even own." Lila squeezed my arm, whispering, "Stay calm." Mallory straightened. "Security, please escort." But before he could finish, Tom rose from the back row holding a folder. "I'm a retired city engineer," he said loudly. "I've reviewed county records. The road you're assessing for acquisition already belongs to Mr. Whitmore. Always has." The room erupted. Mallory banged his gavel. "Order!" Tom handed me the folder. Inside, certified plats, stamped and dated. I laid them on the table like cards in a poker hand. "You want to see liability?" I said. "Try finding someone for land you don't own." Mallory's face flushed. "You're bluffing. Then call the county clerk." He didn't. That night, word spread faster than wildfire. Half the neighborhood refused to pay the assessment. The board postponed enforcement, pending further review. But I knew they'd strike back. HOAs rarely admit defeat. They rebrand it. A few nights later, a black SUV idled outside our fence for 10 minutes, headlights off. I watched from the darkened porch, shotgun unloaded but within reach. It left without a sound. The next morning, an anonymous post appeared on the community forum. "Certain homeowners think they're above the rules. Maybe law enforcement should take a closer look at their finances." That's when it hit me. This wasn't about bylaws anymore, it was character assassination. So let's talk about it. Should HOAs have the right to patrol and post surveillance or spread allegations online under the guise of community order? Is that safety or harassment? By the following Monday, a wellness check request went to the sheriff's office claiming I was unresponsive and unstable. 2 deputies showed up at dusk. I met them at the gate with a polite smile and a folder. "Evening, gentlemen," I said, handing them the log of harassment reports. "Here's every notice, call, and photo. I'm fine, but my rights aren't." They left apologetic. I stood there listening to the crunch of their tires, fading down the road. Somewhere behind me, a cricket chirped against the pulse of distant thunder. The storm broke the next morning. Literally. Sheets of rain hammered the tin roof, and by noon, the drainage ditch overflowed into the lower pasture. I stood on the porch, coffee in hand, watching runoff carve brown streaks across the asphalt. Nature has a way of erasing arrogance for a day. When the rain finally eased, I walked down to the gate to check for damage. The padlock hung twisted, snapped clean. Fresh tire marks cut through the mud. Someone had forced entry overnight. I followed the tracks about 20 feet, then stopped where they vanished into the sod. Whoever it was had turned around quickly, maybe spooked by lightning. I called Officer Chen again. "That's trespass and tampering," he said. "Any suspects?" "One guess," I replied. He sighed. "Document it, send photos. We'll open a case file." I did. 32 photos. Time-stamped 08/07/24, 6:14 a.m. Even as I uploaded them, a new HOA email popped into my inbox. Reminder: property inspections resume this week. Please ensure all external modifications comply with aesthetic standards. It was almost comedic. They vandalized my gate, then scheduled an inspection. Lila muttered, "They're poking the bear." "Good," I said. "Let them." That afternoon, Tom arrived drenched from the rain, binder under his arm. "You're not going to like this," he said. He opened it to a photocopy of HOA minutes from June. Authorization to obtain right-of-way insurance coverage pending parcel acquisition. "They've insured something they don't own," he said. "That's fraud if their insurer finds out." I grinned slowly. "Then maybe their insurer should find out." He raised an eyebrow. "That your next move?" "Exactly." We drafted an anonymous compliance inquiry addressed to Northfield Mutual, the HOA's insurer. Attached, deed, copies, meeting minutes, and the non-dedicated parcel map. We mailed it certified. Return receipt requested. 3 days later, Mallory called. His tone was different now, forced casual. "Ryan, we heard about a letter sent to our insurer. That could create unnecessary tension. Maybe we can settle this privately." "Sure," I said, "at the next open meeting." He paused. "That's not protocol." "Then change the protocol. Knowledge nugget number 3. Insurance carriers for HOAs can withdraw coverage or impose surcharges if the board fails to disclose accurate property ownership or operational authority. False declarations can trigger audits or policy termination. Within a week, whispers started. Emails between board members leaked through Ed's old Gazette contact. Words like audit, coverage suspension, and liability exposure danced through my inbox. The dam was cracking. Meanwhile, the harassment turned surgical. I got 3 new citations, one for improper mailbox color, another for vegetation overgrowth, and one accusing me of hostile conduct toward staff. Each time I responded with a certified letter and a smile. When I showed Lila the growing stack of fines, she shook her head. "They're not going to stop until they break you." "Then they'll have to do it on camera." I installed my own motion sensors and a dash cam facing the gate. I even marked the boundary with reflective tape and fresh signage. Private easement, no HOA jurisdiction, secured recording area. By mid-August, the HOA called an emergency executive session. They were planning something. I could feel it in the way the neighborhood fell silent, like everyone knew a secret but me. Tom advised patience. "Let them overcommit," he said. "Don't interrupt the mistake while it's happening." He was right again. On August 18th, Mallory and 2 board members showed up unannounced with a maintenance truck. I stepped outside calmly, phone in hand, recording. Mallory gestured toward the barrier. "We're removing this obstruction under board authority." "You mean my gate?" He squared his shoulders. "The HOA's gate." Behind him, one of the workers reached for the hinge bolt. "Don't," I said, firm but even. "That's private property." He hesitated. Mallory barked, "Do it." I dialed 911. "Yes, there are individuals trespassing and damaging my property," I told the dispatcher. "I have documentation proving ownership." Mallory laughed. "Go ahead. The sheriff's office knows who enforces this neighborhood." 5 minutes later, 2 patrol cars arrived. Officer Chen stepped out, rain dripping off his hat. He looked at me, then at Mallory. "What's going on?" Mallory thrust his clipboard forward. "HOA enforcement under covenant authority." Chen flipped through the pages, unimpressed. "Got the recorded easement?" Mallory hesitated. "It's implied." Chen turned to me. "You got the deed?" I handed him the binder, plastic sleeve marked Proof of Ownership. He scanned the stamp, date, and legal description. Then he nodded slowly. "Mr. Mallory, this property isn't under HOA jurisdiction," Chen said evenly. "If you proceed, that's criminal trespass." The silence that followed was pure oxygen. Mallory's face hardened. "We'll revisit this with counsel." "Good idea," Chen replied, motioning toward their truck. "Start with leaving." As they drove off, the flash of blue lights reflected off the wet asphalt. Lila exhaled for the first time in minutes. "I can't believe that just happened." "Oh, believe it," I said. "That was our first win on record." That night, I backed up every clip, report, and photo to 3 different drives. The folder name, Countdown, because now I wasn't playing defense anymore. So, here's what I'm wondering, and maybe you are too. If an HOA president knowingly lies about property boundaries and damages private land, what should the penalty be? Removal from a vow. FICE? Civil fines? Criminal charges? Tell me your take. Because as of that night, I was ready to find out exactly how far accountability could go. The morning after the confrontation, my phone started buzzing before sunrise. Texts from neighbors, screenshots from the community forum. Mallory had posted an official statement. Certain residents have misled authorities and disrupted community harmony. We will pursue all remedies. My picture, captured from their surveillance feed, was attached. Lila handed me the phone. "They're smearing you," she said, voice thin. "Then we document the smear too." I saved everything. Timestamps, URLs, screenshots. The folder grew heavier with each click, evidence stacking like bricks. The HOA had moved from fines to defamation, and I wasn't letting a single pixel slip. By that afternoon, I received a letter taped to my door. Final notice, legal action pending. Beneath it, a printout of my own face from their camera. I stood there, paper flapping in the wind, the faint smell of toner mixing with damp cedar from last night's rain. "This is psychological warfare," Tom muttered when I showed him later. He poured coffee from his thermos into a chipped mug. "They want you rattled. Don't give them the satisfaction." "I won't," I said, though my hands trembled slightly. "But I'm not letting Lila stay here tonight." We packed a small bag and stayed at Ed's house down the street. He left the porch light on all night, the old vet in him unwilling to sleep through another man's battle. The next morning, I returned home to find an official-looking sedan parked by the gate. A man in khakis held a clipboard. "Morning, sir," he said. "City zoning inspection. Anonymous report of unpermitted structure." I almost laughed. "You mean the same gate that's been here for 8 months?" "Just doing my job," he said, snapping photos. "We'll send findings in writing." That evening, I wrote every detail in the logbook. Date, time, agency, badge number. The harassment montage, as Lila called it, was now a 14-page record. Citations for trash cans visible from road, a neighbor noise complaint, and even an alleged unauthorized bird feeder. But what broke me wasn't the paper. It was the night the SUV returned. 2:13 a.m. Headlights off, engine idling. I stood behind the curtain holding my phone, recording. After 3 minutes, the driver stepped out. Mallory. He walked to the gate, yanked the chain, then turned and looked straight toward the house, eyes glinting in the moonlight. Lila whispered, "Ryan, please, don't go out there." I didn't. I called 911 again. The SUV peeled off before they arrived, leaving tire grooves like scars across the gravel. When the deputies came, they noted the evidence, but without a clear threat, there was little they could do. Still, the incident report gave me something priceless, an official record. The next morning, over coffee, Lila broke the silence. "You're fighting for something bigger than this land, aren't you?" "Yeah," I said quietly, "for what's left of fairness." That's when my attorney friend Sandra Patel joined the fight. She was a municipal lawyer with a calm, surgical mind, every word precise as an ink stamp. She arrived with a briefcase and that half-smile lawyers wear when they already see the ending. "Here's the thing, Ryan," she said, flipping open her laptop. "Selective enforcement. They can't target one member differently than others without documented, consistent standards. That's a legal doctrine, one you can prove they've violated 15 times over." Knowledge nugget number 4, selective enforcement doctrine. When an HOA enforces rules against one homeowner but ignores identical violations by others, it undermines its own authority and exposes the board to liability. Sandra drafted a notice. Formal demand for cessation of discriminatory enforcement. She printed 3 copies, notarized them, and smiled. "Send it certified. Clock starts the moment they sign." And it did. By late August, the tide was turning. The HOA's insurance audit was underway, and board chatter leaked again, words like exposure, loss runs, suspension. Still, they fought back the only way they knew how: intimidation. A new round of letters accused me of creating hostility in community media, accompanied by a $1,000 fine. I taped it to the fridge next to a magnet shaped like a Texas star. Lila called it our wall of fame. That week, I caught a man with a camera phone outside our fence at dusk. "HOA documentation," he said when I confronted him. "Get off my property," I replied. He didn't, so I photographed him, license plate and all. Fair game. Later that night, while reviewing footage, I saw my own reflection on the monitor. Tired eyes, jaw clenched. I realized what Mallory couldn't. This wasn't about dominance anymore. It was about record-keeping. Proof outlasts power. The next day, Tom called. "You ready for the finale?" "Almost," I said. "One last piece." We met at the courthouse. Tom handed me a manila envelope stamped "Confidential," recorded assignment. Inside was a transfer of lien rights. Months earlier, he'd quietly purchased a small lien the HOA held against an abandoned parcel, Parcel 17, tied to the same master association. "By state law," he said, tapping the document, "holding one of their liens makes you a beneficiary to board notices and internal filings. You're now legally entitled to every audit, report, and financial disclosure." I blinked. "You're kidding," he smiled. "Nope, you're part of them now." It was the secret leverage I didn't know I needed. That night, I slid the document into my binder under a fresh tab. Leverage secured. Parcel 17. Then I locked the binder and exhaled. For the first time in months, the fear that lived in my chest eased into strategy. But storms love sequels. Because as soon as they realized what I had, they tried one last desperate play, a meeting that would change everything. Before we go there, I've got a question for you. When an HOA targets a homeowner with fines, inspections, and false reports just to scare them, what consequence should exist? Fines for the board? Removal? Criminal harassment charges? Tell me below, because by next week, I'd see what real consequences look like. The notice hit my mailbox like a loaded threat. Mandatory community meeting, September 3rd, 7:30 p.m. Agenda: discussion of legal violations by member R. Whitmore. They were turning my case into a spectacle. Sandra skimmed it once, lips tightening. "They're setting up a public shaming," she said. "But by listing your name and alleged violations without adjudication, they're already breaching privacy statutes." "Then we'll let them hang themselves with their own rope," I said. The night before the meeting, I printed 20 color copies of every recorded deed, audit memo, and insurance notice. The binder now bulged with proof, each section tabbed in red. On the last page, I added the trump card, Tom's lien assignment stamped by the county. That one was my ace. At sunset, I walked the property line again, running my hand over the cool metal of the gate. Crickets buzzed in the ditch, and the smell of cut grass carried across the wind. I could almost hear my father's voice. "Don't fight angry, fight prepared." The next day, the air itself felt charged. I arrived at the clubhouse early, binder under my arm, Ed at my side in his worn denim jacket. Lila stayed home. She couldn't bear to watch. Tom sat near the back, tapping his pen against a thermos. Sandra leaned against the wall, quiet, professional, unshakable. Mallory opened with the same slick confidence that had carried him for years. "Neighbors," he began, "our goal tonight is unity, but unity requires compliance. Mr. Whitmore Hoare has obstructed our access, endangered community safety, and interfered with official business. We can't tolerate that." He gestured toward me as if unveiling a criminal. "Do you have evidence?" I asked. He smirked. "Plenty." He clicked a remote, and photos appeared on the projector. My gate, my mailbox, a blurred image of me adjusting a padlock. "Unauthorized modifications," he declared. Sandra whispered, "All taken from your property. Illegal surveillance." I stood slowly. "Are you finished, Mr. Mallory?" "Not quite. The board recommends fines totaling $5,200 and possible lien enforcement if unpaid within 30 days. The murmuring grew tense. Then I placed my binder on the podium with a loud thud. The sound cut through the room like a gavel strike. "Funny thing about enforcement," I said, opening to the first page. "It only applies when the enforcing body exists lawfully." Mallory's brow creased. "Excuse me?" I flipped to the recorded deed. Parcel 14, private easement, never dedicated, verified by county on June 18, 1996. I turned another page. HOA insurance audit. Coverage suspended pending misrepresentation review, August 14th. Another page. Selective enforcement notice, certified and ignored, August 20th. Mallory tried to interject, but I raised a hand. And here's my favorite. I lifted the last page high so the room could see the seal. Recorded assignment of lien rights, Parcel 17, dated August 25th. That makes me a lien holder under your master association. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I now possess equal standing with this board under Texas common interest statutes, I continued, meaning every document, every financial disclosure, every decision you make, by law, must include me. Mallory's face drained of color. That's impossible. Read the stamp, Tom called from the back. I slid the page across the podium. The seal gleamed under fluorescent light. Mallory opened his mouth, but before he could speak, a firm voice from the doorway cut through. Actually, he's right. It was Officer Chen, flanked by a UN. I formed County Compliance Inspector. Chen stepped forward, his boots squeaking against the tile. We received an inquiry about property ownership and insurance discrepancies. County review confirms Mr. Whitmore's documentation. Any attempt to fine or enter his land constitutes trespass. The inspector added, and because the HOA misrepresented parcel status to its insurer, we're opening an administrative investigation. The room went still. Even the air conditioner seemed to pause. Mallory swallowed hard. This isn't the place. It is now, Chen said flatly. I took a step closer to the mic, voice steady. For months you've threatened me, my wife, and my neighbors. You claimed authority you never had. Tonight, the truth is on record. I closed the binder with a soft snap. That sound, the final punctuation of months of chaos, felt heavier than any gavel. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Ed clapped, slow and deliberate. A few others followed, unsure at first, then louder. Mallory stood frozen, face slick with sweat. Chen nodded toward me. Mr. Whitmore, you're within your rights to maintain your property and file civil claims if needed. My report will reflect that. The inspector handed Mallory a notice. Your insurer will contact you about compliance. As they left, I caught Mallory's eyes, once confident, now glassy with disbelief. Tom leaned over and whispered, That's reversal number 1, my friend. He was right. Secret leverage exposed, validated in public, backed by law. But victory doesn't end a war, it changes the terrain. And that night, the terrain was shifting fast. After the meeting, the board scattered like startled crows. Ed slapped my shoulder. You just turned their kingdom into a liability. I smiled faintly. Now we see what falls next. Driving home, headlights sweeping across the familiar bend in the road, I saw the gate gleam under a moonlight. Still standing, still mine. Lila was waiting on the porch, relief written all over her face. She hugged me hard. Is it over? Not yet, I said, but the dominoes just started to fall. Before the next one toppled, I'll ask you, if you held leverage like that, would you trade it for revenge or reform? What would you do with power once you finally had it? 2 days later, the first domino fell. An email from Northfield Mutual Insurance circulated through the neighborhood. Policy for Willow Ridge HOA suspended pending investigation into misrepresentation of property coverage. The fine print included the words, Fraud Risk Review, a quiet nuclear bomb in HOA world. By the weekend, Mallory had resigned for health reasons. Trish, the property manager, deleted her LinkedIn account. The rest of the board called an emergency reorganization session that no one attended but Tom, who recorded it for posterity. The story didn't stay small. The Denton Gazette published a follow-up. Homeowner proves HOA overreach. Insurance audit opens. They used a photo of the gate at sunrise, water beating on the steel chain. That image went viral across a few homeowners' forums, the quiet symbol of standing your ground without raising your voice. Still, I didn't celebrate. I spent my evenings cataloging the fallout. Emails, resignations, legal correspondence. I knew this kind of momentum could turn ugly fast if not redirected. Sandra called it post-victory turbulence. You've got leverage now, she said. The question is, do you burn the field or rebuild it? I want reforms, I told her. Something that outlasts me. She smiled. Then we negotiate. By early October, the HOA's interim board requested mediation. The tone had shifted. No more threats, no more surveillance. Just exhaustion and the quiet admission that they'd gone too far. The meeting was held in a neutral venue, a county office with flickering fluorescents and the faint smell of old paper. On one side of the table sat the remaining board members, and their lawyer. On the other, me, Sandra, and Tom. The HOA attorney began, voice careful. Mr. Whitmore, the association acknowledges certain procedural oversights. In the interest of community peace, we're open to discussing your conditions. Sandra leaned forward. He's not asking for money. Their lawyer blinked. Then what does he want? I opened my folder. No binder this time, just a single sheet labeled Proposed Governance Reforms. Transparency, term limits, audit access, and fee rollback, I said. And a standing committee elected by residents, not appointed by the board. One of the board members whispered, "That's half our bylaws." "Exactly," Sandra said. "The half that got you here." Mallory wasn't there. He'd lawyered up separately, but his shadow hung over the room. The county ombudsman, acting as mediator, nodded. "These are reasonable. Implementing them could reduce future liability." The HOA attorney hesitated, then finally said, "We'll agree, if you withdraw your complaint to the insurer once reforms are certified." I looked at Tom. He gave a subtle nod. "Deal," I said. Reversal number 2 had just been sealed, not revenge, but reform. We signed the Memorandum of Understanding that afternoon. 4 new provisions entered the community's charter. Board term limits, maximum of 2 consecutive years. Transparency clause, all meeting minutes and budgets publicly posted within 7 days. Open records, committee, 3 rotating residents overseeing compliance. Fee, rollback, 15% reduction until reserves rebuilt under audit supervision. As the pen left the page, the room exhaled. It wasn't triumph, it was relief. Outside, the fall air smelled like rain and cedar. Tom clapped my back. "You turned a grudge match into governance. That's rare." Sandra added, "And you've just made a model case for every HOA reform advocate in the state." We walked out to the parking lot, golden leaves swirling around the pavement. The courthouse clock struck 4, each chime echoing like punctuation marks on a long, exhausting sentence. That night, I lit a small fire in the pit behind the house. The violation notices, every orange, pink, and white page, curled into ash one by one. The last one, the final notice, burned slowest, its bold letters twisting before disintegrating into sparks. Lila joined me with 2 mugs of cocoa. "Feels final now," she said. "Almost," I replied. "Still got a few follow-ups to file." A week later, the Gazette ran a final update. Willow Ridge HOA enacts transparency reforms following legal audit. The byline credited, "Documents provided by homeowner Ryan Whitmore." They even quoted one of my lines from the hearing, "Proof outlasts power." Since then, I've been contacted by a few other communities. Some just want to know how to read a plat map. Others want to know how to fight back without breaking the law. But before we close this out, here's something to think about. When power collapses and you get to rewrite the rules, how far would you go? Clean slate or cautious repair? Drop your thoughts below, or at least like the video so it reaches the next homeowner who needs it. Because one more domino was still waiting to fall, and when it did, it carried the quiet weight of closure. It happened quietly, almost anticlimactic, the final domino. 2 months after the reforms passed, I received a plain envelope from the county clerk's office. Inside was a 1-page certification. Willow Ridge Community Association, bylaws amendments recorded November 14, 2024. The official seal glimmered faintly, embossed into the corner like a scar that had finally healed. I laid it on the kitchen table beside my coffee, tracing the raised edges with my thumb. Lila set down a plate of toast and leaned over my shoulder. "So it's official?" "Official," I said. "We changed the rules." For the first time in a year, the air in that house didn't feel heavy. The cameras had been removed, the fine is rescinded, and the HOA newsletters now included a column titled Transparency Updates. It wasn't perfect, but it was accountable, and that's all I ever wanted. A week later, I got a call from a local radio station. The host introduced me as the guy who owned the street. We talked about land rights, property law, and how neighbors can turn conflict into reform. When she asked if I regretted anything, I told her the truth. Only that it took this long for people to realize HOAs serve us, not the other way around. After the interview, Ed stopped by with his dog and a 6-pack. "You're famous now," he joked. "They'll be making a Netflix doc before Christmas." I laughed. "If they do, tell them to spell your name right." He grew quiet for a second, looking out toward the road. "You know, this place feels different now. Folks wave again. Kids play by the pond. Even the new board seems normal." "That's the point," I said. The community wins when the rules make sense. That night, I sat on the porch while the autumn wind rattled the dry reeds near the ditch. Across the road, the porch lights of 3 houses glowed like beacons. I thought of my father, his voice steady, saying, "Land remembers who cares for it." Maybe he'd been right all along. I opened my old binder one last time. The final tab, Countdown, was empty except for a single note I'd written in pencil weeks earlier. When this ends, build something better. So that's what I did. We used the new HOA reforms to launch a community restoration grant, funded from the refunded fines and unspent legal reserves. Ed proposed the name, the Whitmore Stewardship Fund. Each spring it would award small grants to homeowners improving local accessibility, ramps, gardens, benches. Proof that accountability could plant roots instead of weeds. The first check went to a young couple down the street fixing up the old trail. They sent me a photo. Their daughter painting a wooden sign that read, "Public Welcome." Seeing that picture felt like the real ending, the kind that doesn't fade when the headlines do. Before we wrap, if you believe this fight ended the way it should have, lawfully, peacefully, but firmly, say a few words in the comments for your friend who might need this story next. Subscribe so future stories like this reach the right people first. And share it, because fair communities aren't built in courtrooms, they're built by neighbors who stop being afraid. That's on us. The last thing I did was hang my father's hammer on the wall above my desk. Its handle still smelled faintly of cedar. Below it, the recorded deed, framed and matted, dated June 18, 1996, the one that started it all. On quiet nights, I still walk the road. The asphalt hums under my boots, the wind carries the smell of dust and grass, and the gate reflects the porch light, like a promise kept. What changed after? The HOA completed its first public audit. 2 former officers accepted plea deals for filing false insurance statements. The insurer reinstated coverage under strict oversight. The community threw a barbecue on Memorial Day. No speeches, no tension, just laughter echoing over the pond. As for me, I still get letters, people sending plats and photos, asking how to start their own reform. I tell them the same thing every time. You don't need power, you just need paper, patience, and proof. And maybe, just maybe, a gate that reminds you what's worth guarding.